Thank you for joining us. You're listening to the Write Project podcast and radio program. This is a show about writing and modern Newfoundland author culture. This program is produced and recorded at CHMR FM 93.5 FM in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, and is aired on other great stations in the province and elsewhere in the country. It can also be heard online at www.chmr.ca. I'm your host, Matthew LeDrew, author of the Infinity series and founder of Engine Books. Let's see what we have today. All right, thank you for joining me for another wonderful episode of the Write Project podcast. I know I say that they are all wonderful, but this one really is. Every other episode is trash. This one is the greatest. I have on with me Sal from ComicPop. Anyone who doesn't know, ComicPop is an amazing YouTube channel where Sal and his friends Ben and Ethan and his wife Tiffany go on and discuss comic books. They have their main channel where they discuss what's been happening in where they go through and discuss comics with two people who haven't seen them. What's the name of that show?
Back Issues.
Back Issues. Thank you so much. They also have Comics Rec, weekly roundup off the rack. They have The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where they discuss things on a certain theme. All these amazing different sub-shows on Comic Pop and Comic Pop Returns. It's super fun to have you here. Like it's ridiculous, but you're played in my house borderline comic constantly. It is either you guys or Red Letter Media, and I very much consider you guys the Red Letter Media of comic books.
You're very kind. I'm happy to be in that in that category. I love those guys. They're very much a template for us when we decided to actually break into YouTube. I was like, God, if only we could do what they were doing. I still don't really see us on that level, but I do watch them when I eat, which I think is like a big litmus test for a YouTube channel, right? Like, who am I going to eat in front of? And it's like, usually it's those guys or Mr. Sunday. Those are my two go-tos.
Big time. For me, it's who am I going to watch when I'm doing the dishes. And for me, it's either you or Red Letter Media. It's like, I in the mood for comics or am I in the mood for movies?
That's it. Yeah, right?
Yep. Fun. Wonderful stuff. Okay. So that's the introductions of the way for anyone who hasn't heard of you or anything like that. This is a writing show, and the writing of your episodes, I'm interested in seeing the background of it. What goes into an episode? How much of it's pre-planned? How much of it's improv? What's the process?
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, we've been accused of doing no prep or scripting the entire show. So I'm happy to kind of get in front of it a little bit. Although honestly, we don't get like a torrent of people asking about it. It's just interesting to discuss. When it comes to Back Issues, which is our main show over on the main channel, youtube.com/ComicPop, we dive into a trade and we just kind of discuss it. And usually the fun comes from the riffing. And that was inspired entirely by my normal everyday conversations with my friends, all of whom who don't read comic books. So it was always a struggle or an entertaining struggle to kind of like contextualize them. So I've been doing Back Issues for like 25 years. I mean, it's just that people have only gotten to see the last 8. But as far as like scripting goes, there is no script for the show on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. The only time when there is scripting is typically if we do a sketch that like either comes out at the beginning or the end of the show. Occasionally we will retake a line if it's too funny and it gets flubbed, or someone's having an off day and they kind of like mess up a little bit. But it's always from the moment it happens. It's never like I've got a list of jokes I want to hit when we do the book. My prep when it comes to talking about the book is I read it, and I typically do as much research as I can on that book, where it used to be, I just draw from memory. I wouldn't even read the thing. I'd just be like, oh, here we go. And then we were raked over the coals because I underestimated, as being a kind of like lapsed comic book fan back then, how scrutinous the comic book reading audience was. So I was like, I guess I should probably at least read it. So then, and the show evolved over time where I was like, well, maybe I should like read some interviews about it. And I found that like the more I got into that show, the more I got back into the comic book industry and the more fun I had like learning about it. So I'll try and find out like some kind of inside info, some kind of tidbit or some kind of process by which the creators made this thing that we're talking about. As a kid, I always skipped the forewords and the afterwords because I was like, who cares what these authors think about what they wrote? I just want to read what they wrote. But now it's like that's a fun insight into the process. So I always read those, especially with old trades, because they're usually out of print and those forwards are gone because they're considered garbage anyway. But they always give some kind of fun insight into what the process is like. So I always do some kind of research and reading into that. My wife, Tiffany, when she hosts the show, does an exorbitant amount of research versus me. Like she has like dog tags in the books where she's like, I want to make sure that because her approach is legitimately just intimidation. She's like, he knows more than me. He remembers a lot of it. And I need to like match that. So she like puts in a lot of work and effort into it. And I'm always like, no, you know the book, just do it. But yeah, like her research is always like, she's heavily involved in that process and like figures out, who did what, when, what does this mean? Is there an alliterative reference? Is there some kind of insight or some kind of like theme that's going on? For me, I'm just like, here's what the story is. Take it or leave it. Here's who wrote it. And if they wrote it or drew it and they had something to say about it before or afterwards, let's talk about that too, if it's available or if it's like applicable. But as far as like the shooting, when it's like, welcome to the show, the only scripted part is the work that went into watching YouTube shows as a kid, a young adult, and being and kind of like preparing my language for that. I actually thank Philip DeFranco for the there's a poll who's still, by the way, like still huge, but been around for forever, since the beginning, since the infancy of YouTube. But I thank Phil and of course SourceFed as well for the inspiration to even like do intros. When I used to record movie review shows for what would be the equivalent of YouTube, but like 15 years ago. And they went nowhere. Because there was no platform for it. So I was just we shot these things, but I always did the intro where it's like, hey, everybody, welcome to the show. I'm Sal. And so I was very conditioned to do that, but Phil gave me like the flourish, but but I try to, but thanks to the conditioning of watching Phil a lot, I added flourish to my intros. So it's not so much writing as it is just kind of like osmosis.
I do that. I don't think I'm aware I do, but even just at the start of the show, like right? I'm like, I didn't realize, but I probably accidentally got that from Philip DeFranco or at least the stuff that came from that, where every show Absolutely. It's like you wave your hands up and instead of hello you beautiful tits, this is going to be a great episode. Every episode before this is trash. Every episode I start by saying every previous episode is trash.
Okay. I see. Now I feel less special because I was like, right, yeah, I'm bringing the goods, but I will be trash next week. But that's good to know. But no, that's the writing when it comes to back issues is just and with every show, Off the Rack, Elseworlds, off the GBU back issues, like there is no scripting, and it's just because I don't have time for it. Like for me, it's just like I could put a lot of work, and I have colleagues out there in the comic YouTube space who heavily script and they do all this work and this research. And I used to do that too, to some extent. I certainly wanted to bump elbows with them. And so I tried like really hard to make scripted content where it's like, here's a video essay on this thing. And it would get less than half of the views and the interest. And it was not people going in there going like, this isn't what you do and I don't want to read it. It's literally just nothing. Like just it was met with absolute stonewalling. And so I was like, why would I put all that work into something that my audience just doesn't want? Yeah. So I just stick with the improv. But it genuinely, all the like people, I remember somebody saying like, this show is so clearly scripted, like the jokes and the timing, like it's all just like, and if you guys just relaxed, this would be a better show. I remember that being a comment of ours. And I showed it to my cohorts who just guffawed because it's like, dude, there is no scripting. It is just that's part of the fun, right? I'm lucky because Ben, Ethan, and Tiffany are so much funnier than I am, and they jump on stuff that I would never think of.
And their reactions are
priceless, right? Like, and it's just I hate to call us a reaction channel because I don't care for those, but I do. But their reactions are what make the show possible. But yeah, that's the writing. It's a long answer for how we don't write the show.
No, that's wonderful. I tend to agree. I find that your show is really helpful. It really does scratch an itch for me. Like it is very much like sitting around with your friends, and I was that guy who would be like, all right, after work, let's have a single beer, and I'm going to explain something that's recently happening in comics, Siege, New Avengers, something back in the day, to a friend of mine who's interested but doesn't read like you can't do it to a non-nerd, but someone who's like my friend was a big gamer, was interested in comics but just never read them. So it's like, all right, yeah,
doesn't have the context. That's the idea. It's just like, whoa, who's that? Or like, that sounds ridiculous. It's like, well, if you think that's ridiculous, wait until you hear this.
Yeah, absolutely. If you think that's ridiculous, wait until you understand how many times what's her name, Wonder Girl, was introduced.
Yes. Oh, yes. God. Yeah. I tried very hard to avoid talking about Donna Troy just in general. But when we do, I'm like, okay, so, and I've been, it's always intimidating for characters that I'm either like, I have a passing familiarity with, or I'm just not terribly interested in Hawkman, Donna Troy, that kind of thing. But so I do even more research on those characters just so I'm not caught unawares.
Yeah.
With Donna, I've pretty much pared it down to just being like, she's Wonder Woman's sister or Wonder Woman herself.
Yeah.
And saying it's that way makes it really like it sells the weirdness of that character.
Yeah.
It's like, what, she is Wonder Woman? Yeah, kind of. She was for a little while.
Until they forgot.
Yeah, until they forgot. And they just plumb forgot.
Yeah, that's amazing. The amount of, there's some stuff that I'm like, oh man, I would love to hear Sal talk about this on Comic Pop, and I'm sound like a giant nerd now when I say that.
No, it's fine.
But I'm aware that in some level, and I'm wondering about this, like how much you think about this and how much prep goes into this, because you've mentioned before stuff you'd like to talk about, but nobody watches episodes like that. Things like I feel like you guys would get a lot of laughs out of early issues of Captain Marvel, like the old Fawcett stuff. It's weird as sin, but no one's gonna watch that. Your views would just tank, you know.
Maybe, Captain Marvel, Shazam. I feel like because he has a movie coming out, we could probably get away with one. Like when his first movie came out, I was like, well, obviously we're gonna have to do Monster Men, the Jeff Smith tome, and I was like, before I do that though, there was a rumor that Superman was going to be in it. So I'm like, oh, well, I could do Superman Shazam and have more fun than just doing that. But I could probably get away with it. The fact that I've done like multiple Stan Lee, Jack Kirby stories now, and people have met them with like acceptance and fun means that like we're pretty open to a lot of things. I have a plan for an episode of GBU, which is basically just like mini back issues, where we're going to do like classic DC comics. I found a bunch of reprints of old DC comics. So it's like The Flash of Two Worlds. Like I have a reprint of that issue where like they establish Earth 2. And I'm like, we're going to put that in there. Maybe the first Adventures of Superman and like the first Green Lantern or the first Justice League issue. That's what it is. Yep. So it's like, we'll talk about those, and maybe in that context that'll work. But I would love to do old classic books. But like you said, it really depends, and it has to be the right time. Like I can't just throw a Shazam book at somebody. I got to make sure that's heavily planned in advance.
I just want to see Tiffany's reaction or the other guy's reaction to, like, there's Dr. Savannah, the one that everyone knows who's in the movie, but like another Captain Marvel villain from back in the day was just, I can't remember her name, but a woman who wanted to be president, and that was how she was evil. It was just, and it wasn't like, oh, there's an evil scheme. It's just she wants to be president, and we've got to stop her.
We've got to stop her. Yeah, we can't. Heaven forbid. That's amazing. I did not know about that character. I would love to. Okay, now you got me. You had my attention, but now you have my interest.
Yeah. That's it's a bit much. Yeah, no, it's great because like I came to you guys started as a comic fan. I think the first one was actually, strangely enough, your Ninja Turtles 3 review. And I literally turned it on because you did what you're supposed to and played Ninja Turtles.
Play 3. It while it's happening. Yeah, God.
I'm a giant Ninja Turtles fan. That's how I found you, because I was looking for a Ninja Turtles 3 review and just subscribed and just stayed. Nice. And now I'm not I don't traditionally read DC. I'm more of a Marvel chill, but like right at this point, I'm not I'm not staying because I'm a Marvel fan or a Turtles fan. I'm staying because I'm a ComicPop fan. So,
see, there you go. That's great, man. And like the hope is through the gateways that we make available, people get into comics as as a thing, as opposed to it being like I can imagine. I don't begrudge anybody having allegiances or fandoms, but having an open mind or being open to something where they would previously be closed. Turtles, The Tick, DC, any of it. That's great.
Things. The Harleen Black Label thing I picked up. Yeah.
That's such a good book.
Something I never would have picked up except saw the episode with you guys. I was like, oh,
sure,
okay.
Totally.
Yeah.
Tiffany Riley knocked that out of the park.
Okay. All right. Weirdo stuff. Like I've got you now. So I'm gonna do my own weird. The topics that you guys do on Elseworlds Exchange. We talked about this beforehand, but we didn't really get into it. But I've got some very odd topics for you to discuss. I might bounce back at you and make a discussion, or we might just hear what you have to say about it.
Cool.
All right. First one. And in my mind, there is a right and wrong answer to this, but like this is the one that people just battle over. And I often ask people who claim to be like no comics. I'm like, okay, let me ask you this.
Sure.
Does Superman dress like Clark Kent, or does Clark Kent dress like Superman?
I've heard this debate before, obviously, being in the comic world. I know that Bill from Kill Bill has a particular theory about that. And yes, and listen, when I was a kid and I saw that movie for the first time, I was like, wow. But then you remember like, oh, it's a psychopath's interpretation of Superman. And it's like, oh,
yeah.
For me, Clark Kent is, I mean, when Cal lands in Smallville, he doesn't know he's Superman. He doesn't know he's Kal-El. For the first, several years, like 15 years of his life, 17 years of his life, he's Clark Kent.
Unless you're going pre-crisis.
Unless you go pre-crisis, in which case
in diapers.
Yeah. Or when he was Superboy. So, I mean, I guess 12, 13. Let's say 13. Yeah. For the first 13 years of his life, he's Clark Kent. And he doesn't know from Superman. He is Superman because that's like physiologically who he is. But I think what makes him Superman is the foundation of Clark Kent. I think that as far as Clark is concerned, Kal-El is concerned, he doesn't consider Clark Kent a disguise. I think he turned Clark Kent into a disguise later, like adult Clark, because when he goes back to Smallville, he is not like Metropolis Clark Kent.
No,
sometimes the glasses come off, and he's just there. He's helpful and he's confident and he knows the people in the town, and the town knows him too. And there's a book we really can't talk about anymore because of its creator, but that did an interpretation of Superman where literally everyone in Smallville knows he's Superman.
Cool.
And everyone just already knows. And it's just, Smallville is such a small, tight-knit clique. They're all like, well, we'll just keep it secret.
Yeah.
And
I like that.
And he knows it too. I like that too. That it's just like, no. In Smallville, there's no costume.
Yeah.
Like I'm not Superman or Clark. I'm just here and I'm a member of the family. So, I mean, in the most direct of terms, I guess it's Clark wears the Superman costume. Because for him, the story is about adoption, and it's about like who your parents are. And of course, like after a certain age, usually every adopted kid needs to know who their birth parents are. They have some kind of genuine curiosity about that. And
Sure.
And then they find out like, hey, my parents are space gods, or at the very least they're space scientists. And in the Fortress of Solitude, which is of course like a monument to his previous culture that he knew nothing about and had only inherited, he has like a holographic interaction with his birth father who has like all this knowledge and information, but like none of that really informs him as a hero. All that stuff comes from John Kent, his dad. And I think that's a good distinction for him. It's like, that's if it was just the L's and there were no Kents involved, he would not be Superman.
It's almost a nature versus nurture.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. On some level, it's like which,
right? Like,
yeah,
if being Kryptonian makes Clark Kent more Clark Kent. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's a costume, I mean, maybe it's Kryptonian battle armor, or maybe it's a Kryptonian like ceremonial dress, or it's the blanket he was born in, but regardless, these are affectations he puts on to be Superman. But when he's chilling, like when he needs to relax and be with his wife, he's not wearing the Superman suit. He takes that off. Yeah,
you're gonna hate where my opinion on this comes from. I imagine as the the main actor from it, becomes more and more problematic. I hate that this is where my first impression of Superman came from. But my first exposure to Superman was Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman.
That's totally fair. I watched a lot of that show myself. I was impressed as a kid by the effects and by like Superman every day wearing a comic accurate Superman suit.
Yep. But
Terry Hatcher, amazing.
Oh yeah, but when he pretends to be Superman, he's very much like pretending like I am a Boy Scout, and he's talking different. So he like it's not just that the suits are like his personality's a mask. You know what I mean?
Totally. Oh yeah. Well, and every Superman story for the last 25 years has been about his like deep insecurity about, am I being super enough? Like, am I doing enough? Am I doing the right thing all the time? And it's like that insecurity is Clark, you know?
Yeah.
The Superman is him putting on a brave face for the like people he's saving, to be like, we're going to be cool. You know, everything's going to be okay. You know, but when everything isn't okay, he is deeply shaken.
Oh, yeah.
Know? So the Superman thing is not necessarily a facade, but it's certainly an affectation that he puts on.
In the same way that we all put on affectations. I mean, in some ways, it like when you act differently around your parents, are you pretending to be their son? No, of course not.
No. And when if your kid is afraid and so are you don't act afraid around your kid because you don't want your kid to be afraid.
Yeah.
So you put on a mask of a kind.
Yep.
And so I think that's what Superman's doing for the whole world.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. That has been wonderful. Thank you so much, Sal. I'm gonna segue over to a bunch of different questions, if that's
Sweet.
Okay. So these are the ones that we ask everyone. Sal from ComicPop, how long were you working on your stuff over at ComicPop before you could go full time with it?
Oh, good question. I think I started in 2000. Oh man, yeah. I think 2011 was when we officially started, and I left my full-time job. Maybe 2015 is when I quit.
Nice.
So yeah, that's 6 years.
And you were a teacher, right?
I was a teacher. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, my dad's teacher. He's retired now, but yeah.
Good for him. Yeah, that's great.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
This is one that I ask everyone that's on. Usually, this is a apocryphal question because usually I've got lit fiction authors on here, and I ask them this, and they flub and stutter, and it's super fun. For you, it's apocryphal for a different question because I'm asking you to pick your favorite child. But what's your favorite comic book character, Sal, from ComicPop?
Spider-Man.
Same.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Doesn't require. But I mean, I am this close to owning. A few years ago, I sold my comic book collection about 10 years ago now. Just too much room, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but there was some I couldn't part with, and they became like the start of a new collection, which is I'm going to collect this one thing.
Love it.
And I am within 10 issues of owning at least one copy of every Ninja Turtles comic ever printed.
Wow, that's awesome.
Love it. And it's an attainable goal because there's not a lot of them like there are, you know what I mean? There's a lot, but not Spider-Man levels.
No. And I know people who have every Amazing Spider-Man. And I'm like, okay, good for you. I mean, like, that's got to be tough because if you have Amazing 1, that's really cool.
Yeah, but even with all of that, even with my love for the Turtles, the favorite Spider-Man. Yeah.
Well, who's your favorite turtle?
I waffle between Leonardo and Donatello.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think the nerds were like, yeah, Donatello's the man.
Yeah. Depends on the interpretation, honestly, because like in the movie back in the day, it's Raphael, but in the in the comics, it's Leonardo. But they did the same plot line. They just took Leonardo's plot line and gave it to Raphael.
Yeah. In that first movie, it was Donatello. I was like, wow, they did it. Yeah, man. Yeah.
The only one I universally not revile, I love them all, but like the one that I'm like, is Michelangelo, just because it's three people taking the problem seriously and one telling fart jokes. And I'm like, just go away. Why are you here?
Yeah. But, you know, I reckon there's a value to that character. There's a value to the guy who's willing to make the fart joke in the face of adversity. Yeah. And so I'm very thankful there is a Michelangelo.
Oh, for sure. Yep. Yeah. I've got, if you can see it behind me, I've got like all the movie NECA ones lined up there way in the background.
Man.
And they're all there. The turtles are there. And then Casey, love him. And Splinter, Shredder. And then way in the back is Michelangelo. And my godchildren there is like, why isn't Michelangelo with the other turtles? And I'm like, well, you listen here and I'll tell you.
Yeah, because he doesn't take it seriously. That's why.
Yeah,
man, Movie Mikey's still my favorite version, because Movie Mikey at least is like capable of being sad.
Yeah.
You know, like, and you know, if they had kept that longer version of the 90 cut, you'd see like Mikey really takes Splinter's absence hard, and it's really cool. But anyway,
I gotta say, I like the 2K3 version of the.
It's good
on Fox. Yeah, but that's a good version of the show that did some fun, unique stuff. But I do like the interpretation of Mikey. Like, no, I'm actually the best fighter. Right. I'm like the drunken monkey kind of thing.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah. Sal, if you were trapped on a desert island for the rest of your life, and you could only have 3 books or movies or some combination of the two to keep you company, what 3 would they be?
Oh, that's a great question too. When it comes to movies, I think probably I'd have to take Alien, Terminator 2, and something longer. Let's go with Endgame, because that would provide a lot of joy. And I'd just be able to remember all the other movies that came before them. And when it comes to books, I guess, you know, a big inflatable book called How to Make Oars Out of Sand.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you know, Dark Knight Returns, something long that would provide, you know, hours of of entertainment and interpretation, you know, reinterpretation. Maybe I'd finally finish reading Ulysses.
Yeah. That answer is shockingly close to mine, where it's like 100 ways to build a boat and stuff like that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Stephen King's It, because I need something to burn.
Right. Yeah. I read that like in a couple of days, and it was not worth the time, but it was, you know, I'm proud that I was able to finish a book that was over 1,000 pages long.
Listen, I'm not even saying that I'm burning it because it's bad. I'm saying it's a lot of pages, and I'm going to be on this desert island. I'm going to need to stay warm.
Yeah, that's right.
Sal from ComicPop, what is is there any book or comic book, graphic novel, whatever, that's on your list, like your to be read list, but it's just too intimidating? You keep being like, I want to, but oh man.
There is a book that I haven't really finished all the way through, and it's Batman Odyssey.
Okay, yep.
It is so insane. I can't acclimate myself. It's one of those things where, you know, people really want us to do that on the show, and I'm like, it's just too weird. Like, again? That one's the Neil Adams book where it's like Batman and Ra's al Ghul and Tim Drake Robin and Superman, and it's like it was made only like 10 years ago or so, and it's like Batman's telling the story about this thing that happens to him, but then it turns out that's a flashback of another flashback when he was telling somebody else about the same story, and it's like it's a mess. The book looks like it's Batman riding a pterodactyl.
Okay,
that's the cover.
Yes.
And I'm just like, I don't know what is happening, and I've been like waiting to find somebody to just like kind of give me like the bullet points. I'm like, just to acclimate myself, because I don't trust my own interpretation. I'm just like, I don't know what's happening in this book. So that's one that I'm just like, every time I pick it up, I'm like, we're gonna do Batman Odyssey, it's gonna be awesome. And I start reading, I'm like, no, I can't.
Every April Fool's Day, you should just do one where it's like, let's do Batman Odyssey. No, something else.
Never mind. No, because it's not even that long. It's just yeah. Ugh.
Gotcha. Sal from ComicPop. Comic books are known for unfortunate character names. What is the most unfortunate character name you've encountered?
I think Richard Rider got dealt a cruddy hand.
Yeah, someone didn't think that one through. Yeah.
Or they did.
Yeah.
They thought it'd be hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sal, thank you so much for coming on the show on Right Project. Everyone, please go check out Sal at ComicPop and ComicPopReturns. If you're a comic book fan, you need to be watching this. But also, if you're just a writer, like, I don't think you understand. No one here can understand how much watching the Back Issues show and watching these people respond to the tropes and the things that writers do, and helps me be a writer and be like, I know how people are going to react to that when I'm doing my own work. Check it out. It's really fun research. Yeah.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. This is a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the show.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on again. For all of you, we'll be here again next week at 4:30 Newfoundland time or online at chmr.ca. Please tune in and we'll talk more about writing culture in Newfoundland.